Persona 5 is one of my favorite games of all time. This is still the most beautiful game I've ever played, with the combination of the technical quality and unique art style. The life simulation and combat have been polished to a T, the story is great, characters are greater, everything is so nice! Of course, there are a few hiccups here and there, but what game doesn't have that same condition? Nothing's perfect after all. Ever hear of hyperbole? Also, low-key, I was right, so... Anyway, with what's arguably one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, people have been talking about the possibility of a definitive version for the game in the vein of Persona 4 Golden. This one ideally titled Persona 5 Crimson. Many are convinced that it'll happen, and others, not so much. Where do I stand, though? And when it's all said and done, will it actually happen? Do I have any way of knowing this? No, I don't. I just thought it'd be fun to explore both sides of the argument, answer if I'd want it or not, and then talk about whether I think it'll happen or not. Plus, you know, speculation is fun, so let's do it. Persona 4 kinda needed Persona 4 Golden. For as much as I love the original and can play it any day of the week, there were some glaring flaws that could have easily been fixed to get as close to perfection as the game possibly could. It had that BS design mentality where if you died at any point in the dungeon, you'd get kicked back to the title screen, meaning you respawned at your last save, and there weren't any save points in the dungeons until the very end. Yeah, sounds awful, doesn't it? Well, guess what? It was! Not to mention that Chie's voice actress, while not bad, and I don't mean any offense to her, just doesn't fit the character at all.
Aha! Is this our chance?
I rest my case. Regardless, the game was a success overall because there was much more good here than not, so they just wanted to bring it to hopefully even more people who missed out on the PS2 hit, and they did just that, even though it was on the Vita. Now the game's in HD, Chie has a much more suitable voice.
Aha! Is this our chance?
I rest my case. Instead of kicking you back to the start, every dungeon's floor acts as a checkpoint, thank God. And they added even more on top of that, because why not? More fun scenarios between characters, more social links, not only for more content, but to enhance the story even further, more story cutscenes that give even more characterization. I could keep going on and on about how much more there is. There were lots of additions, but they never took away from the magic of the original. If anything, just added onto it without compromising any of the plot elements for the sake of new content. Now let's look at Persona 5. It's already on HD consoles, and with a slick UI and art style, the game definitely doesn't need a visual upgrade. We get it, you're beautiful. Every voice is perfectly suited for their respective characters, so we're good in that department as well. Dungeons aren't random anymore and are completely pre-established from the beginning to end, meaning that checkpoints are here in the form of save rooms. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like the game needs most of the changes Persona 4 Golden introduced to help the original game. Then there's the issue of adding more to the story. There are ways to incorporate extra scenarios, which I'll go into later, but don't expect to have nearly the amount of added content like Persona 4 Golden. P4 literally skipped over January and February for no reason whatsoever, so Golden had the opportunity to use most of that time. It acts as a post-game that works for the Persona style of gameplay, where you still got that day-by-day calendar system so your character still has to leave in a year, but it gives you a bigger focus on the life simulation with many fun scenes and an extra dungeon that really challenges the player. Persona 5 can't do that because the story makes it so that there's a reason for January and February to be skipped. If that were to change, it lose a lot of the punch to the tragic decision that had to be made right before that point, and would that strengthen or weaken the story? I'm serious, for those who played the game, you know what I'm talking about. It'd honestly be so weird to come up with some reason for the time skip to be shortened or not happen at all, for the sake of a post-game for the definitive version. I mean, cool, new content, but at the cost of the story feeling weaker right before it ends? Don't really think that's worth it. Oh, and let's not forget that the original story took about 80 to 100 hours on average, so adding more to that, the main issue with Persona 5 Crimson is that, simply put, it doesn't need it. Persona 5 got it just right from the very start to the point where it's comparable to Persona 4's definitive edition as is. The game would be fine as a re-release because there's only so much they could add to the game, so what's the point? To make a near-perfect game even closer to perfect? I guess, but why would the developers spend time on that rather than moving forward with the series and making 10,000 spin-offs to milk Persona 5 instead? These are the real questions we should be asking. But at the same time, you can't help but look at the other side. Persona 5 was a massive success, and this is Atlas. Persona 4 did so well that they milked that crap for years. A fighting game, a dancing game, another fighting game, an anime that re-released that I can't shut up about, another anime, and we've still got more representation of that entry. It's become a meme at this point, but it's a meme that makes money. Persona 5 is arguably an even bigger success than Persona 4, and we've already got some spin-offs for the game. Dancing in Starlight, the anime, and Persona Q2 to be specific, and we can only expect a fighting game and a remake? Regardless of if it's needed or not, at the end of the day, Atlus wants to make that bread. If they can get that from a definitive edition of Persona 5 on more consoles to be accessible, Nintendo Switch, you're absolutely right that they'll do it. While it did great enough on the PS4, it only helped sales and get the word out even more if people got the opportunity to get their hands on the game. I emphasize the Nintendo Switch a lot because it's a console that's ridiculously successful. Persona 5 is fresh in the Switch owners' heads because of that bombshell in regards to this low-key game called Smash Bros, and it allows for people to play an incredibly long JRPG on a console or a handheld. The ability to play anywhere, anytime, and in any way they want is too good for it to not happen. While they're at it, there are also some things that they can fix and add to the game without that being a post-game for this due to that not working with the story. Persona 4 Golden added some new Arcanas to the mix, and it felt weird that Persona 5 just forgot about them. These could be added back to the mix in the form of new social links and characters, and while we're at it, let's add some more extra scenes that serve as nothing but adding more fun moments between the characters. One of my few issues was that there weren't nearly enough of these in Persona 5, and when there were, they felt rather weak. Most of the time, they were there to move the story along because this narrative was so freaking big that we couldn't get any downtime. Give our cast some breaks, because it only helps them feel real if we got more scenes that are there just to be there. And you could be saying, Zafre, how could we possibly have more content added when the game's already chock full of stuff to do? Is there any time for all this? Oh yeah, there is. There were so many days where we'd get cutscene after cutscene, all for Morgana to tell us to go to bed rather than letting the player use their night to move forward with a social link, or you know, do anything. Let's get rid of that crap. This game really gave us more freedom with our nights, so these felt dumb, to put it bluntly. Our Jester/Hunger Arcana could be another night social link, and with these useless days not in the picture, it'd fit right in. As for having more time for our new scenarios, honestly, there will be enough time. Just look at Nico B. He managed to do all the social links in his first playthrough and still had nearly a month of free time to do whatever he wanted. I think we'll be okay with filling up all that free time with another confidant and some more scenes. Persona 4 and 3 were incredibly strict on being able to do all the social links in 1 year's time, and that's okay. If anything, it really made you manage your time and prioritize the character arcs you want to finish more than others. I don't think anyone would mind that, as it'd make for great replay value and give players who already played the vanilla version something to look forward to. Add in an epilogue like Golden did, and there's quite a bit that could be added for this version of the game. Not nearly to the extent of Golden, but does it matter? Again, Atlus wants bread. If there's enough content to warrant people buying the game a second time along with more people to play the game, they'll do it. Now all that being said, do I want a Persona 5 Crimson? Yeah, why not? The Nintendo Switch has not only become my favorite console, but it's also incredibly accessible for me on top of allowing me to play the game as another console title or a portable entry. I think having that kind of choice is great for a JRPG, being that both types of consoles can lend themselves to the genre in different ways. With all this in mind, I'd be able to replay Persona 5 again and again. If anything, I just want to replay it once. There's a lot of content in this game, and I feel like I only scratched the surface due to me messing around with Makoto too much, but hey, can you blame me? Add new content on top of that and sell it again for a slightly reduced price, please? I'd be all over that. I think a lot of others would be as well. I can't emphasize enough that not everyone has a PS4, and it only makes sense to release a game on multiple platforms. As for whether it actually will happen or not, I think it will. I understand both sides of the argument, and while part of me still thinks that there isn't much need for a remake, this is the same company that kept Persona 4 alive for as long as it did. I think it's safe to say that Persona 5, its world, and its characters aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And if they're gonna keep the game alive, they might as well allow more people to play it, right? With all that being said, to answer the title of the video, I think so and would like for it to. Let's face it, we're gonna see the Phantom Thieves a lot from here on out, and that means that we're gonna get a Crimson of some sort. And you know what? That's perfectly fine by me. I can't help but advertise this game any chance I get thanks to my love for the series, let alone the game itself, and that'd be a lot easier if it were available on consoles other than the PS4. So screw it, let's go for it. Persona 5 Crimson. I want it, you might want it, but it doesn't matter because Atlus is most likely gonna do it anyway, so whatever, just take my money already, you corporate jerks! Oh, and put more music in the game, if you please. Bye!